Mhm.
Sports Counterpoints podcast and GB got Coop and Brian as always. What's up, guys?
What's going on?
What's up,
Man, we
GB? What's up,
what
B?
up? What up, man? We back at it. It's May 4th, 2022. This is our show that we started some years ago to talk sports and fellowship. You dig? So check us out online at YouTube, at Anchor, Google, Apple, wherever you get your podcast. We're there. Share, give us a like, whatever. We appreciate it for sure. Thanks for tuning in. So today's episode, we're going to be talking about the NBA playoffs, which are in full swing. We'll talk about the NFL draft a little bit, have some speak about some of the NFL receivers, including D Hop, AJ Brown, Hollywood Brown, Debo, kind of some thoughts there, and just kind of get into it. So starting with the playoffs, man, what are you guys thinking? We're second round in it now. Things kind of played out pretty much how you guys had thought for the most part. So
Yeah, man. To be honest with you, the only series in the East I'm really actually paying attention to is Boston
oh yeah, of
and
course.
Milwaukee.
Good.
Um, Boston, man. So it's interesting because there are a couple of guys I respect in regards to their basketball intellect, like Rick Bucher, for instance, and he picked Milwaukee to still win this series,
Oh
even
yeah.
without Chris Middleton. I personally have Boston. I think it's going to go against 7 games. But here's the thing that kind of worries me about Boston, and it's that Milwaukee, with their defense, has the ability to turn Boston into a jump shooting team. They weren't able to hit the shots game one, but they were able to hit them game two. That's why Boston won game two, because they were hit shots. So, and then Al Horford, I mean, they might render him probably useless for the rest of the series. I know he had a decent game in game two, but I really don't expect that to happen for the rest of the series. So it's going to be interesting because Milwaukee, of course, defending champions, champions have a way of making you play their game. And I think Boston had it too easy against Brooklyn and they're the Nets, and they were too easy to stop. They were able to stop them no matter what. And I think they had ultimate confidence in the world. No matter what happened, they were going to win that game. They can't be overconfident against Milwaukee because Milwaukee will beat them. So I'm looking forward to watching, all the games in this series. Brian, how you feel about it?
So it was interesting when the first game happened, and Giannis basically just had his way with Boston. And Boston has been playing, in my opinion, going into the series, the best basketball in the playoffs. The next best was Golden State. We'll talk about them in a minute. And so, we both picked Boston to pretty, to win this series. I'm still on Boston. I still think that they're the stronger team. I think Milwaukee is way too dependent on a heroic game from Giannis. They've got the least likable player in the NBA and Grayson Allen on that team. But he's not enough with Middleton and, what's it called? Richard, the point guard.
Mhm.
He could get hot. They have players that may have a good game, but they are not going to become difference makers
Yeah,
in a series. And it comes down to Giannis versus the world.
right.
And I like Boston. I still
Yeah,
like
and
Boston.
yeah, and the thing is, if you're Boston, Giannis is going to get yours here's because you have nobody to guard him. All you got to do is neutralize everybody else. So their
Yep.
game plan to stop is just much easier than Milwaukee's would be. So they just have to hope guys have an off game.
Yeah, and those guys who can get out. I mean, the reality of it is that when Boston recognizes, like they did in this last game, that it doesn't really matter if Giannis gets his 30 points or
Mm,
whatever. As long as Richard and Allen and these guys are held to single digits, low double digits
yep.
overall, there's just not enough production that's going to be in support to beat a really good team. Now, Milwaukee is a very good basketball
Yeah.
team.
Yep.
They just don't have enough firepower in this series, in my opinion, to get past Boston.
Yep. And then moving on to the other series, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not watching this series, and mainly it's because MB's not playing. I just think this was gonna be a sweep from day one. As soon as they said MB isn't playing, to me, this is another boring series. I said in the last podcast, I see James Harden. James Harden is not what he used to be 2 years ago, and from Philadelphia to even have a chance to even win a game, or especially the series, but even a game, he's going to have to play like the old James Harden, which he can't do anymore. They're down 2-0. They just lost again today. This will go 5 if Philly is able to pull out a victory at home in the next game. If they lose, they're going to get swept. And it's not really anything interesting about this series. Miami's kind of had it easy up to now. What you think, B?
Yeah, I think this series is background noise while I'm working. And the reality of it is
Real talk.
Miami is just too good a team that's playing well. I mean, there's a reason why they're the number one seed. They were the number one seed with Embiid playing in Philly and having a MVP type season. So, I just never thought that there was going to be enough. I did think that they might be able to make it a series, 4-2 or
Right.
but now it's either gonna, in my opinion, like yours, it'll either be 4-0 or 4-1. I always assume that an NBA team will find a way to win a game because that's just how good they are. Most,
Yep.
it's not often that a team gets swept. We had one sweep in the last series, and the sweep was the betting favorite in Vegas at the beginning
Crazy.
of the season to win the championship in
Crazy.
Brooklyn.
Yep.
So professionals find ways to win. So if I had to put a guess out there, I'd call it a 4-1 series.
Okay.
But that's it. It's just background noise, and that's not a knock on anybody that's in the series. It's just
Just
we
what it
have
is.
when a one seed plays a four seed, they're
All right.
supposed to make quick work of
All right.
them. Take away Embiid, and that's exactly what's going to happen.
Mm.
Yep.
GB, any thoughts on Milwaukee, Boston, Miami, Philly before we move on?
Man, I've been slacking on both. I'm not gonna lie. I think Boston has a squad, but it's hard to go against the champs. So I kind of got to rock even without Middleton with the Bucks. Miami, like you said, they've had a pretty good road up to now,
Yeah.
getting closer toward the finals. They're playing the right teams at the right time, who just
Yeah.
they ain't got it to match up with them. So I'm really
My,
watching the West, to be honest with y'all.
yeah, Miami reminds me of a weak NCAA bracket region, but but
Yeah.
moving on, B, your thoughts on probably actually, yeah, let's get your thoughts on Golden State and Memphis for our Warriors viewers. How you feeling about this?
I think the Warriors are in trouble,
Oh wow.
and it's just because of a really nasty, dirty play. But they need to figure out. I mean, Memphis, we already talked about, is a one-trick pony as well. But John Morant can't score 47 points a night, and nobody on that team, on the Golden State Warriors team, can play defense on him except for Gary Payton. And when they did that, even when he was in the game, in the first game when they were messing him up, every time he sat down and they put Klay Thompson on him, John Morant went and scored 10 straight points. Um, they're going to have to figure out a game plan to lock him up, and they have to realize that that's what they need to do, and they have to throw everything at him. But the problem is Klay doesn't play defense like he used to. He used to be one of the
Crazy.
best defensive players in the league. You have Draymond who's blind. You've got GP2 who's now out because of the most ridiculously dirty play that I've seen in the playoffs in a long time. And they don't really have a defensive guard who can handle John Morant. So I still I still want to root for. I'm definitely rooting for the Golden State Warriors because I'm not a John Morant fan, and that play was dirty. I think that Golden State can find a way, but a series that I probably thought was a 4-2 series is now probably going to go 7, and I think Golden State's maturity finds a way to get past. But this is not the series. This is not the same series that we talked about last week. I'll stick with Golden State to win it, but this series became a hell of a lot more interesting the minute GP2 hit that ground and ultimately ended up hurting his elbow.
Yeah, I wanted to see this series because I thought Memphis will give them a game. The Warriors haven't beaten Memphis two straight since I think the 2018-2019 season. They haven't beat them two straight games. Memphis, the reason why the Grizzlies match up well against the Warriors is because, like I said, the reason why I want to watch it is because the perimeter players, the wing players. I'm sorry. Well, you can say perimeter, but the wing players from Memphis, Golden State can't stop, and that's why Golden State always has trouble with Memphis. And so uh, like I said, they haven't beat them two straight games in what almost 3.5 years now. And I'm not saying Memphis is a great team, but I just think that the Warriors are a good matchup for them, and that Memphis actually thinks they can beat the Warriors, and they beat them last year in the playing game. So I do have confidence they can do it, but I'm still taking the Warriors in 7. I think Draymond is useless in this series because he doesn't help the Warriors' issues. Like I said, game one, we were all texting each other when he got kicked out the game. Um, I said the Warriors should still win because Draymond doesn't solve any of the Golden State Warriors' problems. So whether he's on the court or not means absolutely nothing. He came back game 2 and they lost. So he's not really a difference maker in this series. But it's going to be interesting in game 3, Brian, because the thing is, if the Golden State Warriors, I mean, if Memphis wins game 3, I think they have a hell of a chance to win the series because that's a confidence booster to go back to the Warrior Stadium for the first game in the series and then win that game. That's a hell of a confidence booster. And I think Memphis's chance of winning the series goes up if they win game 3 by a good margin. So I'm very interested in watching the rest of the series and especially game 3 to see what happens. But I'm still taking the Warriors in
Yeah,
7.
yeah, I think we're on this. We're both on the exact same page. Game 3 is always huge in a 1-1 series. I mean, that seems kind of cliche to say, but when you're able to steal home court, which is what Golden State did, you have to keep it, and you have to
Yep.
keep it at least one game.
Yeah.
And so winning this first game at home is more important than winning the second game at home. In this instance for Golden State, if they can win this third game, the whole momentum of the series changes. They put Memphis on their back, on their back of their feet, and I think I think they find a way to trade games and ultimately win in 7.
Yeah, and what's up, G?
Felt like no, I was just gonna say that Brian was saying like certain things had to happen to give the Warriors a chance to actually win this championship, and it's kind of so far
Up
happening.
until
GP going out is bad, right? I still feel like the Warriors haven't really hit a stride yet because Clay isn't Clay yet. So if he ever at some point can have that outburst and become Clay Thompson and get it going, whether it's next couple games or even the next series if they make it, I think that's a major X factor if he can get it going. Because you add them two, when both of them are rolling, they're a very tough team to beat. I just don't think he's not in game shape.
yeah.
He's shooting
Well,
11
So
for 38 in the series.
and I was going to say he's going to
and
shooting going.
it looks like he's pressing.
Yeah.
Yeah, looks like he's pressing.
Well,
When he's
yeah.
shooting, they're not.
I think the problem we
He's
talked
trying
about
to
this
make it.
a little bit earlier in the season. I think the problem is this is not the type of game that he's used to. He has been the guy who runs around and gets the shots, and
Mhm.
while he didn't dribble a lot, he's never been a spot up shooter. And it's kind of a weird thing to say, but he would run from baseline to baseline and go through a bunch of screens, catch and
Mhm.
shoot. So he's a catch and shoot shooter. But now what they're
Yeah.
looking for him to do is go to a corner and spot up so
Yeah.
that Jordan Poole can throw it to him. That's not been how he gets a lot of his stuff. It's been, Steph kind of does his dance up there. He runs around on the outside, catches it coming from the baseline up, catch, turn, shoot.
Yep.
He hasn't been doing that as much. I don't think he has the same rhythm that he has, and he's got to
Yeah.
establish his new game, right? Because this is going to be the game in the world of Poole, with Poole there, and not just
Yep.
because Poole is a talent.
Yep.
And he's got to establish a new rhythm. And it's not trying to get the old rhythm that he used to have back because he's playing a different way, and that makes it a little bit harder. So I agree with you, Glenn, completely. He's got to find his game where he can become a consistent threat, because it got to a point where they backed off of him. When he got
Yeah,
the ball outside,
Right.
they turned around for rebounds.
Yeah.
Now, he made a couple, and they were some reasonably big shots, but
Sure.
but that's not what you expect from a world-class shooter like Klay
Yeah,
Thompson.
he's not there yet.
He's just not there yet, and
And-
he hasn't found the rhythm. So exactly what you were saying, Glenn, and what we were talking
And that Grizzlies defense has been
about. Solid.
quite good.
They play up.
I'm
They
very
play up on players.
very
Yeah,
impressed.
but have you
Very
seen?
impressed
You
by
know,
the
what Klay Thompson has to do? He has to pull a Chris Bosh. He has to find his way into what LeBron and Wade was doing. He has to find, because Jordan Poole, you don't want to hinder him
Definitely.
because Jordan
But they
Poole's going
haven't.
in and out.
They got a whole season. If you remember that
Yeah.
season in Miami,
Yeah,
they
right.
stunk. They
Right.
stunk the first
Right.
quarter of the season. And
Right.
everyone was like, oh, this is never going to work.
Right.
Blah blah blah. This team is in
Yeah, they
game
figured it out.
7 of having all these players back.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Clay ain't been back that long.
Yeah.
So to me, he's a major X factor. If you get any form of, if you can get 75% Clay Thompson, because I think he's probably 55% right now
Sure.
from what I'm seeing of
From a
himself.
rhythm,
You can get 75%, 80 from a rhythm standpoint, scoring and kind of doing what he's good at.
There's just too many
I think
weapons.
Them shots he's taking,
Yeah.
man, he is forcing some. I saw one where he came
Absolutely.
around. He was going from right to left, and when he got it, he was drifting left as he was shooting it. It's just like he's just trying to.
Yeah, he's pushing, which is
Yeah.
understandable, right? You're in a huge point in the game, huge point in the series. You're trying to make things happen.
But-
and for any golfer that knows, as soon as you're trying to I have to hit this shot. You're not hitting that shot if you're an amateur golfer. Like,
But
it's just not
but
happening.
here's
Not
what
say he's an amateur, but same kind of thought process.
true. But here's what's concerning to me. He missed those 2 free throws late in the game. That's mental. It's getting in
Sure,
his head. It's in it. How he's playing is getting in his head. I don't know if he
sure.
actually comes out the slump in this series. He might come out game 3 and go back to it game 4.
Very possible.
I think it's something to monitor because people, a lot of people like we were all on this. He hasn't played in 2 years. Don't think he's just championship worthy because he's
Yeah.
back on the court. It doesn't work like that. Real quick before we leave, that foul on Gary Payton definitely was dirty. He didn't have no chance to get that damn ball.
No.
But the play that Draymond got a flagrant 2 for, to me, that's either way. I mean, like I said, Draymond Green, he's Suge Knight. You just can't give him the benefit of the doubt on nothing. You know what I mean? He just he
that
has
was a
he has a damn history.
reputational
Right.
flagrant
Well,
too. That was reputational.
he pulled the jersey too. Like
That's what I'm saying. Like
that's what ruined him.
it's in player safety. It's in junior high, high school, college, NBA. You cannot pull a player down as he's going up. You just have to be smart enough to know that. So if he got kicked out for that, I'm not going to say, oh, the referees are out to get him. You can't do that. You even though he didn't hurt himself, you can't do that. Yeah, that's player safety. So if he gave him a player 1 or 2, I wouldn't have cared. Either or.
Something that I miss about the 80s basketball, early 90s.
I've been saying it all day.
I hear you.
Is there should be teams used to have a thug.
Yeah. Everyone.
And when you did what happened to Gary Payton, Dylan Brooks would go into that game squirting a little extra pee because he knew that it meant the first time or second time or third time, maybe not in the first quarter,
right?
He was getting KO'd by that dude at the bottom of the bench who has 6 fouls to give,
right,
and scores 1 point a season.
And you can't do that now.
Well, you can.
Oh, you're gonna be gone for 10 games, but
right.
But the guy at the bottom of the guy at the back of that bench,
every team had one.
Yeah.
Every team.
Moses Moody, I'm looking at the guys who didn't play coach's decision. Yeah. Moses Moody, if you hear me right now, Cheney is, what's his name? Cheney from Temple.
Yeah.
Go get your thug on.
Right. No, and real quick, that Draymond Green foul would have been just a regular personal foul in the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
That wouldn't have been a flagrant at all.
Bro, the foul last night would have been a regular foul in the 80s. They just fought.
Right. And then they would have got technical and still would have kept playing.
They would have been a fight and
they would have kept playing.
It would have stopped Dylan Brooks because Dylan Brooks he's a little dude. He's not,
that was
trying to make a name for himself. But moving on to the last of the series, I think Phoenix just won.
They were up when I left.
Yeah, so they're up 128-105, so this game about to be over. But so how you feel about Dallas and Phoenix, Brian?
Same way I always felt. Phoenix is a better team. I'm not a big Luka fan. I don't think they have enough weapons on that team. Same thing I felt about Miami versus the 4 seed over there. I think Phoenix is going to find a way to handle them. They got Book back and
exactly.
Anyways, Dallas isn't good enough. They're not ready yet.
Yeah. Phoenix is rolling. Not much to say. They might win a game in Dallas, but 4-1 is the most I can see this one going. So yeah. GB, any thoughts?
No, I like watching Phoenix play. I'm gonna put it like that. I really enjoy watching that team. Yeah,
and it's good to see him healthy. I mean, what I wanted to see at the beginning of this playoffs, and I said it, is I want to see a Golden State Warriors versus Phoenix Suns healthy series.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we get that right now.
I don't think Dallas is even supposed to be here. So Utah's supposed to.
They played a bad Utah,
and not to say Utah would make this a better series the way they were playing, but it is what it is. So it's cool. We'll see. I kind of think the higher seeds move on.
Yeah. I mean, Utah just needs to take Westbrook and give us Donovan Mitchell. I mean, just go ahead and do us a solid, man. Help us. Help us out, man.
If you could do that. Yeah, if you can make that trade, you are in the wrong business, bro.
Oh shit.
Word up. So playoffs going. I think it's been a great playoff run thus far. I've definitely enjoyed the games. All of them haven't been good. There's a lot of series I'm not watching, so I guess to that point it's not great, but it's been entertaining. The games I have watched have all been good. I'll put it like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where we're at with the playoffs. Sliding towards the NFL, man. NFL draft over. First time in a long time the Raiders didn't have any first round picks because we got Devontae Adams. I was very happy about that. Shout out to Derek and Dredd. Appreciate that. But what'd you guys think? Was there anything that, I know I kind of was checking in and following up to see kind of who went where, and
Mhm.
a lot of the quarterbacks slid, which I thought was interesting. But just kind of what you guys are thinking. Anything that stood out? Any thoughts you have? Any, you know what I mean? Kind of what are you
Well,
thinking after
sure.
the draft's over?
I'll start with a few and let B go. Number one, Jacksonville's still a dumb team. They drafted a guy number one overall who wasn't even the best player. He wasn't even the third or fourth best player on his team at Georgia. So all of a sudden, this guy becomes a number one pick after a good combine, and we all know how that works out for a team. So Jacksonville, they don't have, and they don't, they don't have a history of drafting and developing players to be, really good or whatever. So Jacksonville just blew it again. Bad free agent signings, and then this pick. Green Bay did not draft a wide receiver with their first pick, or didn't package both of their picks to get it, move up to get a wide receiver, which goes along, I think, with my theory. I don't think the Green Bay Packers actually want to help Aaron Rodgers. I think they're kind of sick of him, and he had all the leverage in their relationship, and they had to pay him. And I don't believe they want to pay him, especially after the GM said that Aaron Rodgers has 3 1-year deals, not a 3-year contract. So Green Bay, I don't think is going to be a force next year. As far as the 49ers, I mean, they didn't trade. They just used all their picks. They did get a guy from USC. I'm concerned about it only because this guy is a speed rusher, but he doesn't have the production to match in college. So I'm hoping that they said he's a development guy that they can he can help. He's an edge rusher, and he doesn't really use his hands too well. Doesn't have great quickness off the ball, but he is fast, or faster than most offensive linemen. So they saw that speed, and hopefully they can mold him into a decent pass rusher to help Nick Bosa. So and the other guy, if anybody who thinks that Jimmy Garoppolo is still going to start at quarterback, the 49ers drafted a guy from SMU that runs a 4.3. We all know Jimmy can't throw that far and that accurately. So Trey Lance will be the starting quarterback to try to throw him some bombs during games. But other than that, as far as 49er draft, I mean, we'll just see how these players are. They're mostly depth pieces. Another thing that stood out to me is that the Cowboys are going to suck. They don't have a wide receiver, or at least a number one wide receiver. They drafted the most penalized lineman in college football last year, which is kind of puzzling. So I'm happy always to see the Cowboys not doing good. But I'll save my I'll save my other thoughts for later. What about you, B? What you think about the draft?
So I didn't really feel you on the Green Bay Packers analysis a look at, because as the Vikings fan who got to watch my team trade the pick to
Man,
Green Bay,
boy,
that they
did they?
go and use on the wide receiver who I didn't know who this kid was, Christian Watson.
Mm.
I didn't know who he was. I don't watch a lot of North Dakota State, but I saw I saw the film and I saw what they talked about, and I'm reasonably certain that they just went and got themselves a guy that's going to make me miserable for the next 4 years. They got a speedy guy who knows how to get across the middle and make these types of plays. It was a prototypical Aaron Rodgers type wide receiver. They got him in the second round with our second pick, who all night after the first round, I was going, oh, what are we going to do with the second pick? We just traded for it. Hopefully we have some big plans. Nah. We traded away to Green Bay
Nah.
for you know, 2 picks later on and deep. But anyways, I thought Green Bay did a good job. I thought the Vikings didn't do a great job. I think it was kind of like a failure to launch. If you know that phrase, where there was so much anticipation with what the new GM was going to do, and instead of going out there and doing it, he kind of punted. Traded down on the traded out of the first round pick to the late first and early second, then traded out of the early second round pick into the late second and third round picks. I think we got some guys. I mean, we got a safety, we got a corner, we got a lineman. We filled positions of need, except for we didn't really get an edge rusher. We got a defensive tackle, a middle defensive player. But we did get some corners and other position players. I have to imagine we're going to do something. But it really, really just didn't make a lot of sense to me for us to trade out of those positions, unless we have a mad genius and he always wanted Lewis Sign and he always wanted Andrew Booth and just knew that he was going to be able to get those guys late. Andrew Booth was rated like a top 20 player in the first round. So to get him in the second round, that's a pretty good pick. But we got to see what we do with it, and it's just going to be interesting. Other things that I didn't like or was interested in, I don't understand what the 49ers were doing. It was obvious that they needed to make some decisions on what they were going to do at quarterback and with Debo. I feel like they didn't make it clear that they're going to go with either of those players going forward. I think there's still a lot of talk about Debo ending up someplace else. The only problem now is that they're not going to be able to get draft picks for this year. They have to get draft picks for next year, which kind of stunts them a little bit if they go that route. And then it seems obvious, as you just said, that Garoppolo's not the guy this year. It's going to be Trey Lance. So why did they keep him around? His value isn't going to get any higher as we get closer and closer to the season, given the numbers that he's going to want to get paid. So I didn't really understand what they were doing there. I've seen a lot of hype around what the Jets did. And if you're the Jets, they got the best player available at 3 positions that they needed. And you just have to look at that and say, hats off to you. They didn't get a lot of picks because they traded up in several instances to get the guy that they wanted. But if you're that team, you have to be pretty happy. You went out and found the 3 best players available at 3 positions. You had 3 first-round picks, and you also Bryce was it Bryce Hall or Brees Hall is considered the top running back, and they got him in the second. So hats off to them for that draft, for their draft right there. But anyways, I've seen a lot of people talking about how the Carolina Panthers kind of won the draft by getting Matt Corral in the 3rd round late there, and he, some people thought that he might be the most ready to play of the top quarterbacks.
Yeah. I'm the Jets. I agree with you on the Jets. It's not going to matter because their quarterback sucks, but it's just like Miami's. But they had a good draft. I like the GM actually. I've heard. I think we talked about on the podcast maybe a couple of years ago. They said this guy, he knows what he's doing, and she's going to be a home run. The only probably draft pick I have a problem with is their quarterback. But other than that, I think the Jets did what they could in this draft. I had Kenny Pickett as the best quarterback in this draft, but it's a very weak class, and I'm surprised that the Pittsburgh Steelers picked him, and that's because Steelers have come out publicly and said that they don't want to draft people from Pitt because they don't want to put the pressure on them to perform for their organization.
I'm guessing the owner made this pick.
Right, yeah, and so I guess they figured they wanted. They practice in the same building, so they have the same training facility. Right. So it's just Steelers on the left and Pittsburgh on the right. So now Kenny Pickett is just going to enter the door on the left side instead of entering the door on the right side now. But they looked at him a lot over the past few years. So I guess they're very comfortable with him, and
exactly.
Good for them. What the Patriots did in the first round, like a lot of their picks, like in N'Keal Harry, drafting a guard from Tennessee Chattanooga, I don't get that. Not that.
So you'd say what they did was strange? You'd say
very strange. And the thing is, I'm not a person that goes around, scouting guards, but I did see this guy get worked badly by somebody who was drafted in the 3rd round of this draft. So I'm not sure if you really want this guy, I'm pretty sure he would have been available in the 2nd round or maybe even the 3rd round. But I don't know why he drafted him in the 1st round. So, that was a puzzling pick as well. I think the guy that Philly got in the 1st round, the defensive tackle, kind of fits their team, Jordan Davis. I think, he's like the other guy. I forgot the other guy they have on that defensive line. He's just like him. So I think that's a good pick for Philly, just for the defensive side of the ball. I wasn't surprised only one quarterback was drafted in the 1st round and all the rest of them slid because, quite frankly, they're just not really that good. And I think everybody else just figured that out as well. Lastly, the Stingley guy, I thought he was going to go to the Vikings, Brian, because everybody had him. Everybody had him going to the Vikings, and then
both of those guys went early, and I honestly think that one of the reasons we traded out of the spot is because both of those corners that we liked were gone.
Yeah.
And then like I said, I think we punted. Like, okay, well, we can't get the guy that we thought wanted, so we'll just delay this decision until later on.
Yeah, I'm go-
Yes.
I'm actually interested in the guy that the Detroit Lions picked up, Aiden Hutchinson.
Aiden Hutchinson.
And
Yeah, that's a fun story.
yeah, and the reason why I'm interested is because personally, I wouldn't draft any player that high that played for Jim Harbaugh in Michigan because I just don't think they become that good of a. They're not that good of NFL players. They just don't become good NFL players. So I'm gonna watch him. Maybe I'll be wrong about. Maybe I'll be wrong about this one, but yeah, I just want to see how I think he was okay in college, but we'll see how he is at the
Yeah.
pros.
Well, I think as far as positions that can kind of transfer, DE is one. If
Hmm.
you can figure out the moves and speed, it's a little bit easier to figure out. You'll go get the quarterback than a wide receiver trying to understand all the terminology and
Yeah,
figure the routes out and get NFL speed. So we've seen defensive ends, linemen come in and can make a kind of quicker impact because you can stop the run too. You may not be this crazy pass rusher like you were before. You stopped the run, so you have options. So I'm interested there because he went to Michigan, and the feel good story. I like the hometown guys.
yeah,
Kenny Pickett's interesting to me too. I'm wondering if watching kind of his play, and I remember he did that fake slide and all that. So he's athletic, and is Tomlin trying to get his Roethlisberger back? You know what I mean? Because I was hearing Malik Willis there, and they don't take him, so you got him within a quarterback competition with Trubisky. So
yeah.
that's interesting. Um, a lot of these guys, I'm not gonna lie, I don't watch college football like that, so I didn't know a lot of them. I do like Chris Olave. I heard a lot about from Ohio State. He goes to the New Orleans, which is interesting to me because I guess they're planning on Jameis throwing to him. So Jameis will chuck it though. It may hit the other team's hands, but he will
Yeah.
chuck it. So that gives him a chance.
Well, they got
Uh,
Shabs.
they got another Ohio State receiver on the team, Michael Thomas. I think he went to Ohio State as well.
oh, did
So
he? Yeah,
uh,
Thomas is a beast when he's on the
yeah,
field.
yeah, yeah.
So
So
you got that, and then the Raiders kind of pick wise, we took. It looks like, I mean, they had starting in the third round, and they're getting good analysis from the pundits. It's always tough because picks you don't know until a year or while once it you don't know until to me once they get in the league and see what they do. So kind of like you always say, Coop, like picks is picks. We don't know. You know what I mean?
yeah,
You can't tell with the picks; they're not
yeah.
established. So
And B, before you go, I read some reviews on that Christian Watkins guy from Green Bay, and a lot of people said most people said that pick was a reach. So I'm gonna be looking just like you to see how good he is. And also they said Aaron Rodgers' relationship with rookie wide receivers ain't the best, so he might not see
you
deep
said
No,
that.
balls. Yeah, yeah, he might.
that's
Yeah. What's up?
yeah. I said I totally understand that, but it's about fit and the
Yeah.
style that the guy plays. And again, I don't watch a lot of North Dakota State,
Right.
so
Me.
what I
Yeah.
watched was
Me either.
the clips that people were showing, and I can completely see, see why they feel confident about that. I don't think he's going to be good like Adam Thielen, but that's a comparison that people wanted to make,
Yeah.
because he's a hometown
Right.
guy. North Dakota State is right next to Green Bay. Thielen came from Minnesota. Was a guy that kind of got drafted a little bit later. Wasn't and speedy, quick, runs a clean route. Um, but anyways, and look, quite honestly, they don't have a lot of options in Green Bay, so this
Yeah.
kid's going to get an opportunity.
Yep.
Sure.
It'll be interesting. It's fun watching the Pitt player, the Michigan player. It's fun watching these hometown stories.
Mm.
Most of them blow up. I don't know if you guys. I don't think we're planning on talking about it, but Tyrann Mathieu just signed with New
Yeah.
Orleans, and
Yep.
the first thing he said is like happy to be home, and he was one of those stories where he was the hometown guy, did blow up. He went there for high school, went there for college, had a bunch of failed drug tests, ended up not being able to play football. Said I need to get away from Louisiana in order to clean up my act.
And guess
Went
what?
there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's older now though, but we'll see because the
30.
same thing kind of
He's
happened to
30 years
Deshaun.
old. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's 30. He's 30 years old, but now he's going back, and he says that one of the he said he manifested this, and that one of the reasons why he's ready and thinks that it's the right time is that he left the community, he's back with the community. But anyways, these hometown stories, they last a long time. No matter what happens with these guys, we'll be talking about it for a while. Whether Kenny Pickett was a bust, whether Aiden Hutchinson was a bust, or whether he signed long term and stayed home for the entirety of his career. Those are always
Yeah.
good stories, like Adam Thielen did.
Sure.
So on and so forth. So these are good. They're good stories.
So,
Yeah.
hey, Glenn, real quick, I read something the other day that I wasn't blasting you. I was blasting the Raiders on when they drafted Cleveland Farrell. That one year, I said he wasn't even the fourth best player on Clemson's team, let alone fourth overall in the draft.
Yeah,
The
he
Raiders
was
came
right.
out. Raiders came out the other day and said, yeah, they're not going to extend him for a fifth year. Yeah, he's
None
pretty
of them.
much going
Yeah,
to
they
be
pretty
gone.
most of Gruden and Mayock's work is it's
Yeah,
kind of how it goes in the regime. But I understand. Like you said, he never panned out. And Max Crosby came out and
yeah,
beasted
yeah. Max
from the third
Crosby was the
round.
pick. Yeah,
So, it kind of is what it is. But we're gonna see what happens. I think the Raiders made interesting picks. They picked linemen. They made some cool moves. So got a couple running backs. So we'll see what happens during preseason and all that.
I don't think they're extending Josh Jacobs either. I was
No,
never
they're not.
high on him either. Okay,
None
yeah.
of them. None of
I never got the hype on him. But
no one
yeah,
in that class is getting extended.
okay,
This is a contract year for them. The one thing I could definitely see Jacobs having a good year compared to Farrell and Abrams. Abrams gets a lot of tackles, but I liked him because he's so fast, but he plays kind of reckless. So I'm hoping
yeah,
he can kind of figure it out because I don't want to see nobody bust or lose their money, or I'd love to see him have a long career, whether it's with us or wherever. But he just kind of got to get his speed in control because he hurt himself a lot of games by just going all out, which is awesome, but you got to get your technique and rely on your technique. You can't just be pure speed and run yourself into stanchions of cameras and
yeah.
ruining your shoulder and stuff like that. So
Right.
Jacobs could have a good year, but the Patriots, yeah, it's not the Patriots way, but they ain't never really had no, they ain't paid no star running back to run. They
No,
had running back by committee every
right,
year.
right.
And they just turned him into whoever it was into a great player because he was getting passed out the backfield.
Yeah,
So I could easily see that carrying over, and Jacobs ain't gonna fit in that.
yeah.
At least not if he wants a bunch of money. So yeah, I mean, I'm interested. Another quick shout out. I was gonna do this for my minute to win it, but I'll do something else. 4 HBCU players were drafted. Joshua Williams from Fayetteville State, Jacoby Durant from South Carolina State, James Houston the fourth from Jackson State, and Jatiri Carter, I believe, from Southern.
Mm,
So
okay.
that's cool. HBCU is getting some love, and there was none drafted last year and 4 this year, including one that was playing with Coach Prime. So
Well, in football, they don't really give a damn where you went to school at, because
Clearly not.
half the league is undrafted. Half the players in the
oh,
NFL are
definitely.
undrafted. They just want to know if you could play, and if you could play on the cheap, that's even better. So,
Absolutely.
so
And
yeah,
they got all these guys. The highest was a fourth round. So
right.
then they definitely will get that. And shout out to those young men. So
Yep.
yeah. What about there's a couple trades that happened on draft day. One, I was interested of all the receivers we talked about, Debo's the only one who's still on his team. AJ Brown got traded and Marquise Brown, aka Hollywood Brown, got traded. One which is more surprising to you guys, and then how do you think those fit with their
Pete,
new
go ahead,
teams?
take it.
Well, I think the AJ Brown trade to Philly was more surprising, just because it was to Philly. I actually think that that's a pretty interesting fit. Um, if you're the quarterback in Philly, who's a young guy who's kind of trying to take over the ranks, you've got to be pretty
Jalen
excited.
Hurts.
Yes, thank you, Jalen. You got to be pretty excited. You got to be excited because you've got somebody who can make hard plays, who's tough, who can go up and get the ball. You don't need to be as accurate with AJ Brown as you do with some of these other guys, where you have to put it right on their numbers. You're more throwing a route so that he can jump and go get it.
Sure. I think
Um,
that's some history too, from what I understand.
oh,
Hmm.
I don't know
Well,
about the history.
yeah,
Yeah.
he played with Tannehill, so yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about the history, but I do think that AJ Brown could be a very intriguing fit. Not to mention he got a truckload of money. So congratulations to him. But of the two, I thought that was the more interesting, and the one I'll probably be paying most attention to. Also, I think it's the one that has more fantasy football impact, because AJ Brown is
Sure.
a stalwart top wide receiver. And the question will be, do you draft AJ Brown based on his talent or
Sure.
his quarterback situation, which would
Mhm.
probably, drop him a little bit.
Sure.
I wouldn't put him up there with some of these other top guys, because of that situation. But I would absolutely jump at the opportunity to get him a little bit later, from a fantasy perspective, because it could be a really good situation. There is not a lot going on the wide receiver in Philly, so there's a chance for some big numbers.
Yep.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Yeah, I think that's the most surprising as well. But I think he would have played for the Edmonton Eskimos in the Canadian Football League if they would have offered him 25, $26 million a year. Seriously, I think it's just about money. He just wanted to go somewhere that paid him. It just happened to be Philly, so he's going to say a whole lot of great things as he's going to the bank. But I think that contract though kind of hurts Debo Samuel's bid to get a truckload of money because the 49ers admitted they listened to offers and they listed a couple of those offers, and they weren't great offers for Debo Samuel. So I think Debo Samuel's probably overestimated his value as a wide receiver in the NFL because clearly
Did
other
he?
teams don't value him as he values himself. So I do think that he's going to become a 49er in training, well, officially in training camp. That's where usually these guys sign their extensions like Fred Warner and George Kittle. So I think a deal is going to happen. And if he, let's just say he doesn't want to play, well, then he's going to miss out on $4 million this year, and the 49ers can still retain him with a franchise tag next year. So it's not like Debo has a lot of leverage here, and I know he's going to want money and get paid. And so I'm sure they can work out somewhere. He'll get a fat signing bonus, and then he'll be back. Be back with the team. So I'm not really too much worried about that. The other one though was kind of funny. Hollywood Brown when he said that he's requested a trade months ago because the offense is too conservative. Basically, he's taking a shot at the organization and the quarterback. And like I've always said, wide receivers want to get their numbers so they can get paid. And if they're with a quarterback who doesn't get their numbers, they're going to want to leave. And this is another situation. I think it worked out pretty well for him because now he's going to Arizona and DeAndre Hopkins is going to be out for the first 6 games of the year, and he's going to have to work his way back into the
Definitely.
rotation. So
And he's
Hollywood Brown,
going and he's going to a team with his best friend from college who he's
right.
working out with when the trade was announced.
And
So
that
yeah.
too, yeah. So as a connection there, that offense fits him. So he's going to probably see a lot of balls come his way in that offense, so he can kind of get the bag when his time comes, especially the way wide receivers got paid this year. So but going back to deep, but to
Yep.
that contract for AJ Brown, it's reasonable. It's a reasonable. Well, I wouldn't say reasonable. You don't want to pay a wide receiver 25, $30 million, but the guaranteed money that he's getting, the 49ers can absorb that for a couple of years and pay Debo Samuels that money. I'm pretty confident Debo is going to be a 49er once the season starts. So
Is that
we'll
a
see
good
what
thing?
happens. That D,
Yeah, I was wondering
paying
about
him
that
that
too.
money?
No, is it a good thing that Debo's going to stay with the 49ers?
He's not going to be like a
No,
malcontent.
yeah, I
Just
think
stay.
with money he'll be fine. Yeah, he's gonna get his money. So I mean, I don't
I
like I said, he's not getting it anywhere else. You know what I'm saying?
I
Or else, you know,
I think you guys have a problem. I think the problem is not that he's not going to get his money to be malcontent or anything else. It's
mm,
that he's now made it clear he doesn't want to play that multi role, and his value is derived from the multi role.
it's gonna have
So
to. I get you. It's gonna have to be a compromise, Brian. But the thing is, the 49 Kyle Shanahan always drafts a running back every year, and he drafted another one this year. So and the thing is,
That's true.
another reason why, he
True.
did to make him, he had put him back there to make him consistent, but also we had a rash of injuries. So, we got what, 5, 6 running backs on the roster now. So I do expect him to get some carries in the backfield, but not 9 and not 10 like he was getting, in some games last year. So it's going to have to be a compromise there. So, but we'll see what happens. I'm with you on that, though. He doesn't want to play that wide back role, and I don't blame him. You get hit more. So,
Yeah,
and he
shortens your
was
career.
running him like the one thing I don't like about Shanahan, everybody knows you're going to run. They got 10 people in the box and you're still running. You know what I'm saying? So he did that a lot with Debo, and Debo's tired of it. So I get his frustration. I get it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. You mentioned DeAndre Hopkins, man, and he goes down 6 games for testing positive for performance enhancing drugs. What did you guys think when you heard the news? I mean, I saw it in the group chat, but for the people that
I
listen.
I was flabbergasted. It was just he's not the guy that I would have expected to see there. Um, and then the next thing you have to try and do is decide within yourself whether or not you believe the statement that he came out with. It seemed sincere, and if he's lying,
Brian, tell me the
he's
statement. I don't want to cut you off, but what was the statement? Because I didn't hear it.
he basically said, "Look, He said, "I'm shocked and confused." He says, I always try and keep a very close eye on what I put in my body. I've always gone the holistic route. I've worked with the team, consistently on what I put in. We're all trying to figure out what it is, but no matter what, I'm sorry. We'll fix this. I'll let you know whatever I know, um, you know, and we'll figure out what happened and so on and so forth. But he said it in a way like he didn't flat out deny. He's just like, look, I try really hard. Eric Dickerson came out like almost immediately and defended him and said, look, what happened to DeAndre Hopkins could happen to any player because these supplements, they don't always put exactly what's in there on the labels, especially the holistic ones. And all I would say is, I don't know. I'm not I'm not a human lie detector. I can't, and I don't know the dude well enough. But if he is lying, he's found the best lie of a lot of these players because he said it in a way that makes me at least believe that there's a possibility that he just screwed up unintentionally and it's not going to cost him 6 games. And, I know we were talking in the group chat and you were kind of, speculating on whether or not the injuries might have had something to do with the timing of this.
Yeah.
And that's obviously a possibility. This is one of those situations where usually when somebody says something, I'm real quick to be, nah, you did it, you got caught. Now you're trying to stay to the side. Like I'm a skeptic by nature. So I will give Hopkins props because he sold the skeptic on willing to be in the middle for at least a little while longer.
These guys never admit it and they never say they're sorry. So I'm like you. I don't know if they're lying or not. I think 95% of them are lying. I think they know what they're doing because what I've heard from professional athletes, they know what the hell they're putting in their body. Now I can agree with these supplements that you take and other things, they don't put everything. I definitely get that, and I believe that's happened to people. Of course I can't pick and choose who it's happened to, but yeah, I do believe that happens. But the first thing that came to my mind, like you said, oh, he's trying to recover from injuries, man. He's tired of getting hurt. He just wants to take something, and I get it, man. He wants to get back on the field. I understand. So I don't know if I believe him or not, but I'm after hearing what you just said, Brian, like, yeah, man, it makes you really want to believe. But he didn't really admit it. He didn't admit it though.
He just said, I'm confused. He said, we're going to figure it out. The other thing is that the story came out. They made a point of saying that he tested positive for trace amounts of a banned substance.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not the first test he's taken over the course of a long period of time. So, the timing is also there. I don't know, like trace amounts.
Yep.
I get it. The league did the right thing.
Yeah.
You pop positive, you're out 6 games.
Right.
But from a PR standpoint and from a believability standpoint, and from a looking at the facts thing, I'm willing to stay in the middle. I'm not going to jump over with the it's the problem. You're trying to get. I'm not going to go in on the guy just yet.
Right.
Which I would with 95% of the time. Like, nah, man, you lying.
Right.
You called the dope man. Don't lie.
I'm with you. What you think, Glenn?
Man, I think the trace amounts is always important because I could see, like you said, that being in a supplement or something. But I mean, probably to your point, cats would know we're not athletes and we know, to a degree. Like I know, we're having. So I don't know. I don't never really pictured DeAndre as that kind of guy, which is why also he has the benefit of doubt for me because it never happened before. No real trouble. You know what I mean? Just was, badass on the court, on the field, excuse me. So, it is what it is. He'll lose the games, and then if you like to your point of you want to recover from an injury, nothing helps like 6 games off.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And he's never been the big guy. Like, quite honestly, if Julio, love Julio, but 2 things. One, the dude always has a hamstring injury, which is something that's always been indicative of people who took PEDs.
Yeah.
2, the guy is sculpted from granite. But that's never really been DeAndre Hopkins. He's obviously a very physically fit dude and has hops, but he doesn't look like some of these other athletes.
Yeah.
DK Met. He doesn't look like DK Metcalf. And I'm not saying DK Metcalf, does.
Yeah, by no means. Yeah.
But if he had that kind of a build, it'd be harder to give him the benefit of the doubt. Like everything just kind of lines up in a way that I wouldn't cast too much judgment on him just yet.
It's crazy to happen in Arizona, man. And like whenever a wide receiver test is positive for performance enhancing drugs, one person comes to my mind. That's David
Oh, I know who it
Boston. I,
is.
I don't think you remember that guy. He was
Oh,
like 6'4", 270 in Miami, and he had his shirt off one time in practice, Glenn. It was like you can't even sculpt a body that looked like
nope.
his. And I knew right then, this dude is on something. You can't be the fastest, biggest, strongest guy and look like that without taking something. And he didn't
when
get busted until he got to Arizona because he got that big deal, a contract, and that's when he got busted for it.
when he played
It's interesting.
in the Chargers, I went to a game. I
Hmm.
went with Kevin, and he was on the field before the game in
Yep.
just the cover outfit, and literally one of the most muscular human beings I have ever seen on a field.
Yep.
He would make DK Metcalf
Yeah.
disappear.
Yeah.
That's how big
Yeah.
he was. And when you think
Yep.
DK Metcalf was a big dude, sculpted, nobody looked like David Boston. I
Yep.
mean, he did a Mike Bibby uh, at some point in time. But
Yeah.
yeah, I know exactly who you're talking
Yeah.
about when you talk
Glenn,
about
that dude was just like,
I
no,
remember the
something's
name.
wrong. Yeah, he's a
yeah,
wide
for
receiver.
those of you
Yeah.
listening, if you can't remember him, Google him.
Yeah.
All pictures will be, you know,
Man.
he looked like he trained with Arnold Schwarzenegger back in
Yeah.
the 80s.
Yeah. I saw him in Miami. B saw him in San Diego. I saw him in Miami with his shirt off one time on the practice. I was like, oh, hell no. Hell no.
There
So
you
yeah.
taking something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
we're gonna
yeah, it
see.
was obvious.
The Hollywood Brown trade made a bit more sense too. As you know, I saw that and I'm like, oh damn, they get Hollywood Brown and D Hop, and then all of a sudden D Hop's gone. I'm like, oh, interesting. So,
Right.
as far as you saying receivers want to get their numbers, like he's gonna have a shot at least for 6 games. And then if he really blows up now, DeAndre, you don't work DeAndre and you get him the ball, right? You feed him the ball, but you got to get Marquise the ball too if he's rolling. So it's gonna be interesting. I
Yeah.
like the moves that have been made. I like this is one of those years where I'm really. I mean, obviously the Raiders made a lot of moves, so very rarely am I like actually optimistic. I've always been cautiously optimistic, but now is a year like, damn, we could do something. But so much movement has happened that I'm really interested to see. Good teams got better, some bad teams got better. It's really going to be interesting. They also announced the international games too, including the 49ers playing in
Yeah.
against Arizona in
Mexico City.
Mexico.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that should be interesting. But yeah, I'm really excited, man. So we're gonna see what happens. Um, that's right for now. That's our show, guys. Unless you had anything else you want to throw in.
I'm
Appreciate you
good.
guys as
I'm
always,
good.
man. Thanks for letting me do this with you for years. It's our last segment, man. The minute to win it. Mine was going to be about the HBCU players, so I'm actually just going to give a shout out to Coach Prime, Deion Sanders at Jackson State. What he's done there has been phenomenal. I've really been impressed, and I love kind of taking your talent and using it to enhance a school like that that's not necessarily getting the shine and making it the new facility, new field, all these things to get them to raise the level of competition for that school, which will be better for bringing money to the school, bringing players and other collegians to the school, and raising up HBCUs in general. So shout out to Coach Prime for me. What do you guys got?
I'll go. I'm gonna give a shout out to Jordan Poole, man. Jordan Poole, you like to see. Yeah, he can play, but his story. I think he started in the G League or whatever and worked his way up. He's playing with star players and sort of fitting in and making a huge contribution and impact. And the reason why I want to talk about it is because a lot of I ref a lot of AAU games, man. A lot of these kids don't want to go through the process. They just want to automatically be very good or be great, and it just doesn't work out like that. That's all why I've always enjoyed a player like Kobe Bryant because Kobe Bryant was great because he enjoyed the process. 2 weeks after they won a championship, an NBA title, he was back in the gym, working out at 5 in the morning at the Lakers facility. Guys like Lamar Odom aren't doing anything like that, aren't doing things like that. That's why he's Lamar Odom, and that's why Kobe was Kobe Bryant. So Jordan Poole, he's obviously worked on his game. He never gave up. He kept working and working. He just liked to see when guys get that payoff at the end and earn a shot, earn an opportunity and take advantage of it. So my shot is for Jordan Poole, keep balling and, hopefully one day he'll be a Laker. We'll see.
Now that
Good deal. All right. Well, someone had to say something about this. So I just want to say my heart goes out to every single female in this country, young, old, um, because what has happened in the last week with the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade and the writings of the conservative members of the Supreme Court, which basically call women who have had or thought about having abortions killers. I really feel for all of them. It is every single time a justice has been asked if they could think of any instance in which a man's body would be regulated in the same way a woman's body is. They could not think of one single example. And yet, every single person who's over here is trying to cast aspersions on these folks who are making decisions about their lives and their bodies. I think of a whole bunch of expletives to say to all of those Supreme Court justices, but most importantly, I just want to say I am sorry for every single person who is part of that decision to women. I'm sorry to all women, girls. I got two daughters, and I'm sorry. Last, I'll give a shout out to a friend of mine, Jerome. He actually posted something earlier today that I thought was kind of an interesting take, and he said, for all these billionaires who think that they're just the best thing since sliced bread, hit them up and ask them to put aside 10 billion if they're 200 billion dollars to as a legal defense fund for all the women who are about to be attacked, brought up on charges for attaining legal abortions when they're still legal. So I'll put that out there. If you guys want to, if people want to hit up their local billionaire and say, hey, if you want to help, this is a place to help. Now's the time to help. That's it.
Yeah, well said. Nothing else to say there. Sports Counterpoints podcast. See you guys next time. Thanks for listening.
Later.